welcoming you, Sato Santala. You are vice president of IFAD.
Associate vice president.
More or less.
Something like that.
Right. We knew each other from quite some time, right? Because we came to
Even if we're so young.
Yeah, absolutely. both of us, we were actually head of our corporations offices in Tanzania, and there we were practicing the delivery as one that then led to slowly to the reform of the United Nations Development System. So, again, welcome to all of you. Thanks a lot for coming at the pop-up house. You've seen the setting. The setting, I think, I find it really marvelous, really great. Thanks a lot for giving us the possibility, basically us, you, the young ones, the possibility to come here and think about future transformation food systems, and at the same time showing that visions are doable, even in difficult times, that are doable, and actually that reality is already here, up and running. The difficulty is always, and this is something that we were discussing while trying to create a different kind of exhibition, is to show that all pieces gets together into a system. This is the aim of the exhibition. So we had, as a team already indicated, we had the group of Bites of Transformation, the young ones that created this manifesto, this vision, and now with Snack the System is an idea to show that this is actually in the making, is happening. Today we will go like this. We will have first a video message from the Deputy Mayor Anna Scavuzzo of Milan. Milan is a front runner in the food-related issues already from Expo 2015, when this was one of the subjects of the matter. Then we will have a few words by Sato as introduction. During the discussion that will follow with the panelists, that they will joining in two waves, put like this, you will understand also why Anna and Sato. There is a reason for it. But okay, can we start with the video, so that because if not, I'm talking till it's time for the aperitif, and then I'm burning your time. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon to all of you. Unfortunately, I cannot be there to welcome you, but we are very, very pleased to host this important event in Milan, and we are sure that the panel will provide a fruitful discussion on the issues of the food system transformation toward the sustainability of cities. We are delighted that you selected Milan for this event, as the city is the forefront of the changes of food system since many years, and both at the international level through the chairing of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, and the national level with the development of one of the most effective food policy strategy that entails some important priorities, such as, first of all, ensuring access to food for all, sustainability for food system, fighting against food waste, and education on food. And last but not least, research and innovation on agri-food food system. At the international level, the engagement of more than 200 cities that signed the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact give us the opportunity to involve mayors and politicians and all actors that take part in the food systems to analyze and propose new solutions that can change the food system in each specific context. This is the main challenge for cities and countries, and each of these actions can give important contribution to shift toward more sustainable practices on food management. And I would like also to have a look at the global context also, because the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent conflict have strongly affected food in its different components, such as production, distribution and access, and of particular interest is the big crisis that cities have suffered and suffering from these events. We all know that the path toward achievement for the SDGs and Agenda 2030 needs a strong commitment of the public and the private actors together. The implementation of new policies that promote sustainability, inclusion and equity on food systems are certainly a very important starting point. And I've seen that there are many important guests, and on behalf of the city of Milan, I wish you a very good work this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sato, it's your turn.
Thank you, Pio, and thank you so much for inviting me to be here today on behalf of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD. I wanted to say how much I've been inspired by what we've heard downstairs, what we've seen up here, and I'm really looking forward to continuing those conversations. It's such a hopeful message at this time where we're seeing so many challenges to our food systems globally. Of course, from the pandemic, from climate change, most recently the war in Ukraine, and the global impacts on food. But really, I'm encouraged by what you also said, that really there is so much already going on that we can build on, and so many different ways we can do that we can strengthen the resilience of our food systems, so that they are more resistant to crises and changes that inevitably we're faced with. One of the things that is critical to be doing when we see disruptions in international trade, like we're seeing now, one of the biggest things, or the first things to do, is really boost local production and markets. This means improving productivity, investing in nature-based solutions, and also investing in the midstream. So that means in the work where agricultural products or produce get transformed into food, including processing, packaging, labeling, distributing, and so on. For food systems to fulfill their potential to transform lives and livelihoods, we must strengthen connections between rural, peri-urban, and urban areas by investing in, for example, better rural infrastructure, transport, markets, and technology. This is really an opportunity to increase incomes and resilience of small-scale family farmers and producers, linking them to local, national, and regional markets. It's also an opportunity to ensure that people living in peri-urban and urban areas have access to nutritious, safe, healthy food, even when international trade may be compromised. But of course, benefits of strengthening rural and urban linkages goes far beyond being resistant to crisis or dealing with crisis situations. Oftentimes we see that it triggers multiplier effects, creating decent jobs along the length of the value chains, with more sources of income for local people who then are able to spend that income in their communities, leading to more robust and sustainable economies. Also, it's a way to create more employment opportunities, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, where millions of young people, I think 10 to 12 million people, young people are entering the workforce every year. So you can imagine the scale of the challenge. Also, as urban populations grow, improving the links between small-scale farmers and urban centers is a way to improve rural jobs and incomes while also enhancing food security in urban areas. When farmers can earn more, they are also able to invest in their farms, to spend more on farm equipment, seeds, fertilizers, as well as food processing, again, in turn, creating more opportunities for the private sector, for companies in the local food systems. And for young people, vibrant rural economies can provide an outlet for their energy and creativity and innovation and more employment opportunities. So while I've been speaking, you may have been wondering, so what is this IFAD actually? IFAD is a UN fund, both a fund and a UN organization, so a financial institution that invests in agriculture and rural development in developing countries. And at IFAD, we really focus on benefits of investments in rural areas and for rural populations. But I do want to emphasize that sustainable cities need thriving rural areas, so the connection is clear. Urban centers depend on rural areas for a range of goods and services, especially, of course, food, clean water, environmental services, and raw materials. The time, it is really not useful to treat rural and urban as something completely separate and even competing priorities. I think it's good to kind of put that past us. And to really work for greater rural-urban connectivity, because if that's done right, it can really create shared prosperity for both rural and urban areas. And it reduces, in many countries, dependence on food imports. Topics such as agriculture, rural development, urban planning, employment, climate, and natural resource management cannot really be addressed in isolation from each other. More than ever, we now need to connect both the urban and rural landscapes when implementing development initiatives. And this is a so-called territorial approach, which brings diverse sectors together to address common challenges and relationships, for example, between agriculture, climate change, and employment. In IFAD-supported projects, we are broadening our scope and walking the last mile to connect farmers to peri-urban and urban markets by improving access to information for them, processing knowledge and technologies, and rural infrastructure. I want to share with you an example from India, a project in Tamil Nadu following a tsunami that had hit that area. And that project has worked to manage natural resources more sustainably and to build new enterprises. This project has helped 170,000 households start small fisheries projects, thanks to increased access to credit, new cooling facilities and techniques and technologies to turn fish into food, along with investments to strengthen these coastal communities' organizations and their access to markets. Their fishery income has risen by an incredible 95% in comparison to other communities that had not benefited from the project. And the total market sales for them are 47% higher. And this is, of course, for extremely poor communities, an incredible change in their lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, at IFAD, we really applaud the Bites of Transfoodmation initiative promoted by the government of Switzerland. Also really inspired to see the film downstairs and all of that what's presented here. And of course very much agree with the youth manifesto that it has produced. This holistic, people-centered approach to building inclusive food systems and economies really resonates very strongly with what we believe in at IFAD. And the way we see that food systems must be transformed. And we fully identify that with the mantra that every participant in every food chain must be able to capture a fair and equal share of food's true value. That's really, it's a very well put thought. And like Switzerland, at IFAD we also see young people as the bridge through generations, blending tradition with innovation, bringing together rural and urban interests and people. So we look very much forward to continuing our close collaboration with Switzerland for food systems that are sustainable and just, and that overcome the urban and rural divide. And I very much look forward to the rest of tonight's event and very interesting panel discussions that were to listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Satu. Thanks. Maybe we can shift meanwhile while asking to Céline, Andrea, Marina, and Davide. We can maybe sit there while coming here. I wanted, because I'm going to forget that, and I don't want to forget that, that I want to thank actually our current team at the mission that has been really working super hard to create this, and also what comes next in Rome, and then what comes next at the World Economic Forum in an incredible way. So it was everything that the team that we did here at the mission was above of our actually capacity, and they did it with the support also of our team and Paola, that she is the only one that remained with Eve at the mission. Everyone is here. And of course, a big thank to the group of Bites, the young ones that actually are, the ones that actually are luckily forcing us, the old one, to try to be serious and to push for changes. Now, say that you saw the manifesto, right? We enter now directly in the conversation. We just, in order not to spend too much time, I will go directly. First, I will ask to Céline and Andrea to tell us a bit why Milano. Is it something like this manifesto, something that you are striving for, or is just crazy, this stuff? How far Milano wants to go, and how far Milano associated with other cities wants to go? Let's go for it.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I'm really thrilled to be here today. And I believe that it is a very inspiring and fascinating initiative. So congratulations also for the organization. I am Cécile Michel, and I work for the city of Milan, in particular for the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, which is an initiative that has been launched in 2015 as a main legacy of Expo Milan 2015. Why the city of Milan decided to invest so much time and resources in creating a network of cities that now reaches over 220 cities all around the world? Well, first of all, more of the half of the population of the world is urban. So we have been somehow used to think about food as a rural matter, but considering today's data, it is also an urban matter. Then we know that cities that decide, municipalities, local governments that decide to work with food can really use food as a leverage to tackle the most urgent challenges we are facing, such as climate change, social inclusion, biodiversity conservation, decent employment, gender balance. Well, working with food and working with food from an urban perspective really help us in tackling the SDGs. Without working with food and cities, we won't be able to reach them. So, after this introduction, how do we concretely reach those ambitious goals? Well, we launched this network of cities, I said more than 220 all around the world. So mayors that decide to sign the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, they commit to work for a more sustainable urban food system. I'd like very much the declaration that the Consul General said before about sustainability as somehow seen as an holistic, from an holistic perspective. So sustainability is not only environmental sustainability, but also social, economical, and so on and so forth. So mayors that decide to sign the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact commit to work to improve the sustainability of their food system. The pact concretely is composed, well, by a preamble, but then it lists down 37 recommended actions that are clustered into 6 categories that somehow embrace the whole food system. Yes.
Can I ask you, if you don't mind, we don't go too much into details,
Okay.
but the question I would like to ask you, do they mean it?
Sorry?
Do they mean it, this municipality, or is a tool to kind
Yes.
of a propaganda?
No,
we are going to be
really
good
not
in the
only.
future.
No, it is really not.
And why
not a
these cities, by
declaration.
the way, and not others? I don't know.
No, it is really not as a declaration, but only a declaration, but it is really a tool. And most of the time, we already have solutions that have been developed, tested, implemented somewhere else in the world. So we at the Secretariat and managing this network, we really make sure to connect cities from all around the world that have already implemented those innovative solutions, or even not so innovative, but yeah, and we connect cities so they can exchange best practices. One of the most, let's say, effective tool we have is the Milan Pact Awards, through which it's an open competition, competition open to signatory cities. And we have collected 270 best practices from cities. You can see them in our website, and it constitutes like a living library of knowledge and best practices from cities.
It's happening in terms of best practices. Then we will maybe come back later to see also about the normative aspect, how it changes norms, because one thing is having good examples, the other thing is making them that these are generalized in the change. So, Andrea, Milan is inspired most by the network, or is the one inspiring the network? How it goes?
It's a good question, and I can answer both.
Okay.
Because, you know, when you look to a city and you visit a city, you don't think that that city can have a food policy, for example, no? Because a food policy is just a policy.
Totally.
But you eat there, you have the opportunity to be there and speak with stakeholders, so you work, and the food is a lens that help you to understand the city, the culture, the businesses that are in the cities, and the people that live there. So food is a lens to look at the city, and the food policy is the way in which, as municipality, we are trying to manage the food system. We are trying, because it's a challenge.
So give us an example,
yes,
concretely,
of
a
course.
change, an example of a change here in Milan.
The first thing is that we try to do, because we can to change all. We have to prioritize our actions. We decide to prioritize, for example, the work with vulnerable people. So, for example, we work with healthy diet with kids in Milano Ristorazione canteens that is managed by this public company. So we work on procurement, for example. Procurement with the local producers, with healthy food. Try to change the consumption of the red meat, the pork meat. We have, in 5 years, the change of less than 71 of the pork meat and 72 of the red meat instead of tubers, legumes, and poultry, for example.
Can I get back to you, because suddenly
Sure.
you said something that wants to David. So Firmenich, I thought in the past that because when I was a kid, actually I worked as a unskilled labor in Firmenich for a few months to pay my studies. And at that time, I remember was producing parfum, kind of Chanel and so on. So now he's talking about reduction in consumption of meat. Is Firmenich anything to do in this kind of businesses?
Yeah, so Firmenich, yes, is famous initially for perfumes, consumer fragrance, but has a strong division in food, so meaning developing flavor solutions.
Okay.
flavor solution that helps also this diet transformation that Andrea is talking about. So we are working business to business with food producers to help and enable the diet transformation, to help and support the challenges that industry has. Because when you move to the usage of traditional meat or traditional food, and you want to make them appealing as the traditional food, but with other source of protein, we need to work and cooperate and partner with the food transformation industry to enable and give solutions that make the products tasting good, because consumers are looking for tasting good products. They're looking for something that is appealing. They're looking for something that they want to consume again, but they want to consume something that also enable them to have a better nutrition, to have the right intake of protein or fat or sugar, but not abuse them, and also making appealing products based on pulses, based on lentils, chickpeas, peas, or other source of protein to kids is not the easiest things. They tend to reject what they don't know.
How you connect, how Figmination, so how you connect with the ideas of nature-based solutions, with the concept of agroecology, nature, going to nature, because the people say, oh, wait a minute, we are talking about synthetic kind of...
First of all, flavors is not only talking about synthetic, it's talking about nature, because we transform what the nature gives to us.
Okay.
There is the need also to have an end-to-end approach, so connect also from a sustainability point of view with farmers, to have products that are good to be transformed, high-quality products that can be transformed and used into the food preparation.
Okay.
We developed flavor solutions that are synthetic on one side, but also natural on the other side. Our ambition and vision is to have more than 70% of the solution that we are developing coming from nature source, meaning not only from what the nature offers, and develop solution that fits for the consumer, and develop solution that enable having product tasting goods. And
can you give me just an example, just to make, I don't know.
An easy example is...
an easy one.
Vanilla, for example. How we transform vanilla from the producer, from Madagascar, ensuring that in Madagascar they have the good quality products. Vanilla is a very manual work, because they need to be impollinated by hand. Manually.
And producing a cyclone-prone area, by the way.
Yeah. And then we need to ensure, and we need to have a connection in Madagascar with farmers that enables us to have high-quality products, but on their side to have products that can be well paid for them.
Okay, so sorry, so it's kind of clear. Yeah. So this means that this is already one of the links that Satu was speaking about. Now the point is that, are you doing this randomly, or do you have a discussion with the municipality, and the municipality says, look, we are pushing for healthy diet going in a certain direction, and then you say, we are here, we support you, or by pure chance you meet, you discuss, and
we discuss more with the industry that is then discussing as well with the food municipality. We discuss and we listen the needs of consumer. We interview consumer, we understand which are their needs, and we transfer these needs of consumer also to the food industry, and we develop sustainable solution for the industry that then goes to the consumers.
I'm always playing a little bit the Avocato's Diablo, yeah? So let's imagine that I'm not sure that is a good idea. So how are you as an industry discussing with research? Are you getting together? Maybe also to see an example of Marina, what to come into the...
Actually, no, I think we never met so far, but
no, so far not.
It's not good. Yet, I would say.
Yeah. This is a place to connect.
It's a very good place to start a dialogue, actually. And this is what Swiss Food Research is doing in Switzerland. So we are offering spaces to all actors of the ecosystem to meet and discuss about new projects. We have like 12 innovation groups, for example, also for alternative proteins. And I'm very happy to see that there are 2 exhibitors from our network. It's Alver and Essento being here.
Can you raise your hand? Where are you, Essento and Alver? Oh, they are there.
Christian is over there.
Oh, yeah, no, one over there. Yep. Oh, I see the Essento in the back. Look.
Thank you for showing. And so actually Swiss Food Research is a network of actors within the innovation ecosystem in Switzerland. And it was born through a promotion of InnoSwiss, which is the agency for innovation in Switzerland. So we were born as a national thematic network 10 years ago to really offer space for confidential discussions on innovation, because that's a touchy issue. When companies start innovation, it's more, we hide it from everyone else to make the profit. So this is the idea of innovation and growth.
Property rights and all these kind of things, right?
Exactly, that's very sensitive.
But I think Davide wants to say something there.
No, I want to say that as Firmenich, we connect a lot also with university, center of research, because we have a big investment of our turnover and revenue in innovation. Around 10%, 10-12% of the revenue is invested in innovation, because we need to bring solution to life. We need to deliver solution in a sustainable way. We need to develop molecules that are biodegradable. We need to have renewable products. We need to use what nature gives to us in the proper way. And to do so, we cannot do it alone. We need to connect also with the scientific environment that is through food research, university. We have different centers of research, but we are not doing the things only by ourselves.
That, by the way, just for information, when we are talking about job creation, it's in the added value of agricultural product, than in really in agriculture that is created. This is what we can see quite often everywhere. So coming back rapidly, because we've got very little time. I'm sorry. Oh no, two plus. Its team is really. Because then we will have maybe to continue later on during the aperitif and so on. This is just an aperitif of the aperitif. So when you're connecting with other cities, I suppose that you are not just talking among cities, but you are exactly discussing with shareholders, stakeholders. How you do that in 2 seconds?
Yeah, well, many cities are developing what is called food council. Food council is really like a place where the different stakeholders that are involved in the whole food system, policymakers, research, the private sector, producer, consumers, meet and discuss the challenges, the opportunities of the food system in an urban area. So many cities are doing this, from the global south till in Europe, everywhere. So this is very initiatives that are very much welcome and lively, I would say.
Thank you, Andrea. Just because yesterday I was talking to a student that actually no, was not. No, she's still a student working for Coldiretti, one of the producer, the biggest. I mean, I don't need to introduce Coldiretti. And she was saying that her dream would have been to set up a farm in which she would raise conigli, small rabbit, but not to eat them, but to help pet therapies, for instance. So basically, many of the young ones are looking for multi-functional profession. How a city like Milan, that you have university and so on, how you work on that? And do you talk linked to your food policy, but are you also linking with changing, pushing the curriculum? How does it work? Is it something really possible, doable, or it's just
in my opinion, it works in 2 directions.
Okay.
The first is one more top-down approach that is managed, for example, at the regional level with a specific framework that is called Rural Metropolis Framework. And it's a specific framework in which the farmers are working together with the municipality, with the metropolitan area of Milan, and they are facing problems through concrete actions. But it's a plan, I can say. Yeah. On the other end, the grassroots activities that arise from the territory is project about local food chain that arise from new ideas, very niche products that can be that can break the market, that can cover specific part of the market that we need. For example, legumes to produce near the city. And it's a challenge to have a organic legume produced in the peri-urban area of Milan that is so near to the consumption.
Could we imagine that this building there would be a possibility for nature-based solution instead of plants moving tomatoes and everything is coming down? Does it make any sense or not?
At the moment, we are not at that level. We have more working on public lands that are in the surrounding of the city.
Maybe there will be somebody coming with some solution over there.
Oh, wow.
Okay, we will talk later. We will take the discussion later again. Two questions, if you allow me. I know this, I'm sorry, it's really very short and packed, but just two rapid questions, really. An answer, each one in 30 seconds will be the same two questions. So it's easy, so we can go in this way. So first, I suppose you all read the manifesto. Do you really believe it, or is just like a kind of a little bit too pushy stuff? First question. The second, what would be your magic recipe to really give the young ones leadership in your area of work? Your area of work.
Well, I can start. I think it's the manifesto expresses the passion and the hope of very many people in the globe, and I think also of the public here. And I can tell that this is what drives me personally, but also the organizations I'm working with, in really trying to push and find examples that work already and show that things are happening, and it's one step at a time. So that's my answer to the manifesto. Yes.
I will say that on the manifesto there are a lot of common points that we have at FirmH as well, especially on sustainability, on the way of engaging the young consumers and on the needs that they have. And what we are doing is really trying to connect to the consumer, and our way of working is really understanding the consumer needs to deliver then solution for the industry that fit and meet the consumer needs, because if you want to have something and you want to eat something, it needs to taste good.
Right. And what about the young ones?
What about?
The young ones. How you get them on board to push?
You need to connect with them. You need to understand their way of feeling, the way of understanding the needs, and then you need to connect with the needs of the young population in terms of their way of looking at the future. And this is what we need to transform in the way of working, because there is a big change in the generation, in the way of working, and we need to find solution. And you were mentioning as well multi-purpose industry, so probably we need also to find a way to fit and meet this kind of needs.
Thanks. Céline. Oh, Céline, sorry.
No worries, no worries.
I was almost good till the end.
Yeah, concerning the manifesto, well, as Davide said, I also found many points in common with the Milan Urban Fit Policy Pact. We are somehow expressing also a vision, an ambitious one, and as has been said before, solutions are already there. We are not only part of the problems, but also part of the solutions. So I really do would like to highlight this point. Concerning young people and the youth, well, I would say the majority of the innovations in the Milan Pact cities are really coming from the grassroots organizations that are most of the time small one and very young one. and this is something that we should recognize and we should support. I do believe it.
So are you telling us that interconnectivity will play or plays an important role?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Andrea?
I can conclude saying that we were discussing before about the manifesto, and we appreciate it. I say we because me and my colleague from Food Policy discussed with your colleagues that is a very interesting way to attract interest on food, especially considering important burning issues. I just want to say one of this that for me is important, the social proximity, because it's very connected to a policy that I also have we have in Milan. Not just about the food policy, but about the city, about the 15 minutes. We can find proximity in also in young people, because you know, I have a kid. I have to live in my neighborhood. I have to eat in my neighborhood. I have to express needs that can be that can work also at that level, a smart scale level, and we need solution that can work at that level.
Thank you for this panel. Again, I apologize, we're making short, but we need to move on with the second panel. Anyway, definitely, I still remember one important sentence they told me once speaking about cities. Food deserts is something that remained really somehow planked in my head, something to be avoided totally. And the other one is the concept of food as a public good. This is for the next next discussion, maybe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Shift
Thank
to
you.
the next. Thank you. So can I ask Federica Liad, while cleaning the then Karina, and Cassiano, of course. One criticism that I often heard when this manifesto was produced was, yeah, but this is for rich people. This is for those cities that are very well off, where you can speak about true values, true costs, and so on. My first question to Iad, and is it is it something for just the super fast-moving cities like Milan or others? I don't know. Amsterdam, I think, is part of the Pact as well, right? I just remember a few of them.
Actually, no, because when we...
Mike?
Yeah, it's working now.
Oh, no, you talk and then we'll adjust it.
Actually, no, because when we start this discussion with the Bites, we always had the refugee crisis always on the table.
I think he wants to help you.
As I said, like we discussed the refugee crisis, always was on the table. I think it's connected because like we saw before the refugee crisis and people coming into Europe, the situation, the Arab uprising in the Middle East. So it was never been just only for the rich city. It's always connected to the, let's say, the third war, or like where's like most of the refugees are right now.
Is the answer, because we had several times this discussion as well, is the answer from the system appropriate? Because we maybe there is a big conceptual mistake that we all did at the very beginning when a refugee camp would be created in a situation that this would start for a few months, stay there for a few months, while actually you told us, you explained to us how actually most of these places are cities.
Yes, that's why I would to underline that there is refugee camps from 1948 still there, they become cities. People live there, they expand around it. It was a rural area, then it's become a smaller city, then a big city. Then, as you see, for example, Amman is now a big city. It started with 10,000, now it's host like 6 million. There's refugee camps now in Jordan. The new one, let's say, the new one when we say 10 years old, next month the Zaatari camp, which is like the largest refugee camps for the Syrian in the world, it's in Jordan, in a rural area of Mafraq. It's been 10 years now, still isolated. It's its own city, its own system, but it's still different than refugee camps from the 1948 or from 1967.
Sure.
Yes, it's still in caravans. There is refugee camps transformed from tent to metal house to concrete house, level after level after level. And now we see a different type of refugee camps where it's still in caravans, still not integrated to the local or the host community. And that's the situation. And that's why we're trying to bring that always to the table, that refugee camps is not just a temporary situation, few weeks or 1 month or few months, and that's it. No, it's still there from 1948.
Thank you. You use an important term, integration. If I don't mind, I do a little bit zigzagging. I turn to Cassiano, integration. When I heard use the terms integration, Dung, for some reason, you came in my mind. Can you tell us?
Seriously?
You have to tell me why now. What happened? What happened in Valpaschiano?
I'm really very far away from the reality.
Yes,
but
but
I'm in a small valley in Switzerland,
yeah.
like very
what was
happening
in the 60s, let's say, in this valley?
Yeah, we're at the border to Italy, so that's like a place where. But now what's happening now, I think, because we are having refugees now coming from Ukraine, so this is also something that is an issue for this area. So I'm coming from this smart valley, let's say, and now we are working with not this size. The people are coming; they're staying in houses that are there already. It's not the same situation, but it's about integration of them in our community, which is a small community. And it's now I'm working just actually in these days to organize educational process. Not because what we can give them is learning language,
Yeah.
So, but we need to learn also their habits. I think it's very important. That's the first thing we thought. So it's like something that we have also as a community to learn about the culture of the people who are coming to this area, and so create an exchange, because at the end this is the way you integrate, and they're coming from an area which is very different from ours, and they are coming in this like perfect place, and so for which everything works, everything is functioning. They don't want to stay because I think they want to go back as soon as possible. So there is it should be a period of their life that is okay. And so we also have to adapt and to try to like understand better what is going on. This is integration now at this moment.
And if you exactly in this moment, if you link it to the food, because we're talking quite often we're talking about renewed traditions, for instance.
Food is the perfect way to do that, because the idea is really to work through food. Understand how the cultures are. And I think buckwheat, for example, is something that we have, but they also have in their area. So I was talking to some of the refugees there to understand a bit better what do they eat, to understand if we can have ingredients that they can use from our area, and on recipes. I think this kind of connection through food is very important. Even though we don't know the language, I think cooking together is a really good way to understand each other, and also to valorize for them what we are doing, because we are like this organic place and so on, and to have a way to connect to what we are doing in the area, and we could learn from them also some innovations maybe in the food, maybe some new recipes with our ingredients that are like a mix of pizzoccheri and I don't know what.
Exactly, and then link it with research and with the agro-industry, and maybe, who knows. Then coming to Federica, it's basically what Cassiano, you just did, you told us a story. It's a kind of, it's about narratives. Yeah. You're the super duper expert of narratives.
I don't know if I'm the super expert of narratives, but I'm quite obsessed with the narratives. That's why when you asked Iyad about what is a refugee camps, we have to ask ourselves what is temporary. And the problem there is that we have a perception of refugees camps like temporary settlements or temporary solutions. So in reality, there are like places, quite ambiguous places, where you have always this relationship between temporary settlements and permanent settlements. So we have to start to perceive, and also when Cassiano was talking a few seconds ago, saying, yeah, they are not staying in like refugee camps, they are staying in houses, you know, we have this perception that they are staying there for like 3 months, 6 months, what is going to happen? So it's again a matter of perceptions, and it's true that these cities like the refugee camps are like cities in the making, urbanizing spaces, but we have also to be careful to not, let's say, to make like this situation normal, let's say, normalize this situation and accept that these people live in this between state, or, you know, in an incertitude that becomes permanent and it's the new normal. They can live there for 10 years.
And how you link it to the manifesto of the...
I link with the manifesto because we want in the manifesto to change the narratives about food, about perceptions of food, about perception of places, about perception of urban versus rural, about cities, and also we have to say that even the word urban and urbanization is quite tricky. So we have, for instance, speaking of the Middle East Mediterranean region, we have different kind of urban areas and even different kinds of cities. If we think about Dubai, we cannot compare Dubai where we were 2 months ago. You know, we don't.
It's
really
where I learned that the planet is flat. So go ahead.
So we cannot really compare Dubai with Amman or Beirut or with Cairo or with Istanbul, because they are different categories of cities as well. So we have to bear in mind this. Dubai is an international city.
Thank you. I'm coming to you in a second because I want to give you the space to then coming back to one point that I think it's important when you're speaking about Amman, or you're speaking about the refugee camp where you have not only people coming from another reality, if you want, but it's also another working reality. So farmers coming into a place that were basically, if you want, it's more pastoralist community than farming community. In a country where there is a super stress in the uses of resources, water, underground the uses of water, and so on, and where 96% of the food is imported, or 90, yes, something like this. So how can we speak about unifying food system, way that we get together? What would be a kind of a dream of you, if you could spell it out in...
To answer your question, I have to explain like a really important topic, like a place like Jordan. 1 of 2 youth is unemployed in Amman or in Jordan. Jordan hosted the highest number of refugees per capita. They're suffering from water resources for political reason and for climate change. Camps is dense. There's no agriculture space, let's say. So the situation is really bad. Okay, to make this clear, the situation is bad. Refugee camps is relying on humanitarian aid. Now with the Russian-Ukraine war, it's dropping rapidly to a really dangerous, alarming sign that there's no economy in the camps. There's no economy in the country, the host country. I'm not talking about just Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, the whole region. It's going toward a really dangerous place. For coming to the dream,
exactly.
What we thought is, and which I will explain like why I'm come here and what we thought and what we discussed, we came up with ideas like the joint work between the MEM, the Bites, what we could do.
Middle East, Mediterranean.
Yes. We just, the nice things about this, we always find a solution. We don't want to cry about the situation. We need to find a solution. We came up with the idea to introduce the vertical farming, the hydroponic, the microgreen system into the camp and the rural area. So to bring something, we will not change the world, but like to start small. Why? Because first, this type of farm will fit well because we have, as I said, lack of water and lack of spaces. This could create a small microeconomy inside the camps and the rural area to not rely on the humanitarian aid is dropping really slow, and to create what we say, what I call it a cultural identity, where when we grow food that we eat or we are familiar with, and that could in many ways help the refugee and the local economy and the system and the donors country where they just have to dump, like send money for humanitarian aid.
Yes, because we had some discussion about humanitarian aid. And sometimes it's necessary, but it's also important to make sure that doesn't become just the only way. That is also to keeping us well, sleeping nicely, because we feel that we are doing something. Now it's your turn, because you heard, Karina, you heard this very complex situation, if you want. And you, with the group of students of the Frank University, you expelled out clearly a dream. Can you tell us rapidly about the dream? Surely.
Okay.
You have, yeah? Now
yes. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
So our project started in a class. Our professors, including here, project management class. It's a vertical gardening project. So right now, vertical gardening is mainly used for aesthetics purpose, and we would like to grow food in those vertical gardens, and we would like to use them. They won't produce enough food to feed everyone in the cities, but they will bring more awareness to how food is produced, because I was born in a big city and I lived my whole life in a big city.
Where? Sorry, just for...
I lived my whole life basically in São Paulo, in Brazil. So
it's really big, São Paulo.
Yes.
Confirm.
So we are used to going to the supermarket and buying food that comes out to a plastic bag. Or maybe we don't buy certain fruits because we don't know how to choose them. We don't know if they're good or not. So since we're very separated from where it's grown, the food, we really prefer to go to the processed food that has an expiration date there. We don't have to think much about it. So with our project, we want to bring the food production next to the people that lives in the city, so they can understand better the true value of.
Is it fair to say that your project is a symbolic project of transformation?
It is a symbolic project, but well, if it becomes reality, I think it can really transform.
For a project like this, to make it functioning in a situation like the one you were describing, what would be, let's say, an advice that you would give
For us, we will not keep it as sample or a sample project. We are thinking to expand. We have around 15 formal refugee camps only in Jordan. There's in Syria, within Syria, in Lebanon. What we thought is like to start this in a mass, like production in the camps. But the trick about this is not just to grow some food there. No, to make it sustainable, we create a food market. Food market where it's going to be to bring all these communities together in a food market where they can sell their food, not just a stall of vegetables, no. Give a livelihood for people from the camps and the host community to start their own business inside the market, to give them the safe space to start, like, let's say, a food industry restaurant in a safe space without the fear of legislation, the risk of losing the capital. We provide them with like the media, the coverage, the marketing. That's one thing. The other thing is to bring like the international recipe with local ingredients.
Nice.
Yes, and two, we always hear all these big names of all these words, buzzword, gender equality, zero waste. Now it's the time to put them on this market. Why it's not a zero waste market, zero plastic, solar energy, and gender equality. So that's the idea of this market, and that's the advice to do.
So you are getting the dream, right?
Yes.
You see it. And as much as you see it, I find it very common, very similar. Even if you can imagine, we are completely different situation, lost in maybe in space and time, but it's a dream that you're having with your kids, for your kids in Milan. And it's the same that you're having in your situation. Cassiano, because it seems to me that it resonates. You went with your group a long journey in time also, because at certain moment there was a desert, basically, at least in desert production. You remember that many years ago you told me that there was no buckwheat production anymore. There was zero in your region. So everyone was abandoning. Maybe there was not a refugee camp, but there was nobody there left, basically. So
no, the people were still there, but they didn't eat the food from their area. So this is a bit what we lost. We lost the connection to the production, because the food industry, the food started to be more attractive. Prices were lower. Agriculture in the mountains was more difficult, not any more attractive to do cereals, and so cereals disappeared in the area. So what we did is to work on the value chains, the traditional one, because the project I worked on, and this is something that is common, I think, here, it's community based. It's the community. It's community of a city, community in a refugee camp, where everything has to start. And it's heritage based also. So it's also important, heritage sensitive, something that is rooted in the people. So we worked on that, and today we have a radically local value chain that produces over than 170 products that are made all completely in the area, with a label like this, which gives value to the thing. So I think it's a bit what will happen in the refugee camp, having like labeling these products is very important, saying this is something that is 100% made there or 100% made in Milan. I don't see that yet now, because this is something you said in the city. You never think of the food of the city, of produced in the city. You have recipes or specialties, but you don't find something that is radically local, made in the surroundings here. This is something that gives a lot of value. I think also what you are doing is really interesting, because you work on this aspect, and I see it's really connected. We do it in a mountain valley with a community of 4,800 people, but I think the approach and it can be replicated in the same way. And in the manifesto, we hear that, we see that the common values on food production are there, and they can be in a valley in the Swiss Alps, or in a refugee camp in Jordan, or in a city like Sao Paulo, where you have communities that have to come together and think about what they want to do.
Thank you, Cassiano. Karina. So, if you would have, after listening what we discussed basically, if you would take your project, what would be as a first component you will add, and then I will pass to Federica, and then we close.
First component that I would add. What do you mean by that?
You have a project that looks a kind of technical in bracket. Yeah. So in order to make it functioning, what would be, let's say you from after this meeting you go out and you start doing something to make it doable. What would be the first?
I think the first thing is to listen about the people that lives in the cities and to understand how they would like to have this, because if the people are not interested in having this, or if the people are not connected to keeping and maintaining the vertical garden, this won't really make a sense to have it. So I think the first thing is to understand how people can connect with that and what they want, which type of food they would consume if it was grown like this, and how they would take care and kind of build a community, a kind of a community garden, but a vertical one. Mm-hmm. So how they would interact with that.
Thank you. And Federica, you've been basically connecting for years and years now, in both in the region, and what would be your take in the way to go forward?
Let's say, I said before that I'm obsessed by narratives, but also by comparison. So if I think about a city like São Paulo, I cannot avoid to make a kind of comparison, because there are some temporary or not temporary settlements around São Paulo that face basically the same challenges that you have in refugee camps. Are not refugee camps, but in the end you have these flows of rural people coming towards the cities, thinking that they will have better conditions, better life there. And this is also related on to what Iad didn't say, but it was like some refugees before COVID went living in the city. Then during the COVID, they decided to go back to the camps, because the conditions were better in the camps instead of in the cities, where they weren't really able to earn their living. So I think that we can also make these connections and to see which kind of challenges we are facing that are common challenges, and again put in context, because it's true that we are facing the globalization and so on, but then we have also to take into account the context. And again, speaking of youth, we have also to bear in mind that the population in the Middle East is the youngest population that we have. So it's again a different needs comparing to European cities, where the average of age is a little bit different from the Middle East. And also, I believe that what we need to do is to make connections and to take also good practices, for instance, the example given by the work that Cassiano did and he is still doing there, in order to attract even younger generations there, because it's not always true that the best conditions are in the cities or the best opportunities. So we have also, again, to change a little bit the perceptions, the narratives, and so I believe this, yeah.
Thank you, Federica. I'm not going to ask you any questions, because meanwhile we have to close down here. But I would ask you, while closing this conversation, because actually this is being a conversation more than really a panel discussion. I would like to ask you one thing. Try, before all this discussion has evaporated, the first and the second one, the two pieces of it. We would have loved to have in one, but it's impossible to do just one conversation. I would like to ask you, before getting maybe tomorrow or before you forget everything, to read again the manifesto. Read it again and read after this discussion and see what tells you, if it keeps telling you something and even gives you idea. Because for me it is being after having the discussion, what does it mean then concretely, that suddenly certain elements were really sinking in. When we are talking about true value of food and not true cost. I mean, we were struggling with the difference between true cost and true value, but then after the discussion came out so clear. We are talking about true values. You are not talking just, in bracket, about true cost, in the sense of climate change related costs, hidden costs, and so on, and production, and so on. So if you see what the young ones of the group produced, I found it, yes, it's philosophical, but it's very concrete as well. So thank you. Team, what should I say? We go for the aperitivo. Thank you. Thank you for joining.